Hello, and welcome to another edition of Unpopular Review Wrestling. I'm Vic here with Evil Dose today, talking about this week in wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, and it was a doozy. It certainly was. Oh man, wasn't it incredible? Because I mean, so much is just happening right now in wrestling that personally I felt like they're just on fucking. My mic is muted.
No, your mic's not muted, but
What?
I think that see, I was going to tell you that you must have been you must have gotten hit in the head because you had the Raw review banner up. It says SmackDown.
What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I think Guardian Angel fixed the background for you to SmackDown.
Something's going on in my controls here. What the hell is
I
going
don't
on
know.
here?
I don't know. We were touched by an angel.
We were, because all of a sudden my controls are acting up over here.
All right. Well, maybe the old gods and the new didn't like where you were going with this with the intro. Hi, everyone. It's me, Evil Dose, and we're going to be talking about SmackDown today. We right now is me, and this was unexpected. So everyone who knows me knows how much I love doing solo shows. So I'm going to, right now, while we're waiting for Vic, I'm going to promote my non-wrestling podcast, Garden of the Doom and Garden Views. This week, what a doozy of shows. First, I had Professor Patricia DeGennaro. We talked about geopolitical issues, including the hot wars and possibly some cold wars and a potential continental war right down in our global south. On Garden of Doom, I had the director of jihadwatch.org, Robert Spencer, talking to me about Islam, and Islam is a giant vacant hole in my world, and he helped to educate me, but from the name of jihadwatch.org, obviously he has a particular view of it, so that won't be controversial at all. But the week in wrestling, listen, it's been crazy. We're probably not going to talk about Vince very much. I don't want to. I feel very talked out about it. We did almost 3 hours on Hammerlock Hangover on it. I've done a bunch of Wrestling Soup shows on it. Not even all of them have been published, but a few have. But WWE has managed to change the story. Yes, we're wrestling fans. Yes, our attention spans can be shifted easily. But ever since SmackDown a week ago, almost nobody's been talking about Vince. Johnny Ace's I'm a Victim have been drowned out. The Ashley Mazzaro story resurfacing is still being talked about a bit, but all the talk is about wrestling and wrestling storylines. And, well, which story is going to be finished? Which story is going to be finished? Whose story is it? Whose family is it? Which is the real royal family? And whether you like what's going on or not, it's centered on The Rock. Still the most electrifying man in sports entertaining. I mean, if electrifying and electric just means that you are polarized with a lot of electrons versus too many neutrons or protons, whether you get the boos or the cheers, that's the positivity and the negativity. And there's your polarizing. And that's what makes someone electrifying, right? Oh, thank God you're back.
Sorry, man. I had a little trouble with my computer, but now I'm good.
Well, I was vamping for a while, but luckily I didn't get into any substance. So I don't know if you were listening or not, but I just teed it up to the fact that nobody's really been talking about Vince. Everybody's been talking about the story and which is the story and how The Rock is, still the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. But I didn't get into the media event, which people still insist on calling a press conference. It was never a press conference. But I didn't get into that. I didn't start on SmackDown. I was waiting for you. So take it away, boss. This is your show. I am everybody's favorite backup, the star of nothing. Take a bite of that. Take a bite, big guy.
Well, I mean, I know we should get into the press conference. No, but look, I think we should get into the press conference because it is very interesting. Why? Because what I like about it is that number one, they're taking all the attention away from Vince naturally,
Mm-hmm.
but secondly, it certainly turned out to be something that nobody saw coming, which I
True.
can really appreciate. The Rock heel turn, definitely didn't see that coming.
My
And
position on this: the Rock's heel turn started when he refused to put Superman over.
well, that's a topic for another day. But
Fine.
this whole thing, this whole thing kind of it also kind of ruined the long-term booking that they were trying to do as far as the whole thing with the tribal chief.
Has it?
They can continue it at another because like if you really look back to like the very beginning of Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, this whole thing with him being the tribal chief and all of that, and him fighting Jey Uso for it, and it's a thing. So they could have. I think that originally they were trying to have a situation with Roman and The Rock fighting over this at WrestleMania at that big stage, but clearly the fans took that away. Because the great thing about today is that there really is no kayfabe. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to booking, it's everybody knows who's the booker. Everybody knows what's going on. When I first started watching wrestling, I had no idea that Vince McMahon was the owner. Like I literally thought he was just an announcer.
Right. And I thought Jack Tunney
I had no idea until it became public. Like, yeah, I really thought that like Gorilla Monsoon's position.
I would be confused for hours wondering how he's not the best person in the world to be referencing. I won't. How Bruiser Brody would be on AEW, AWA television, Puerto Rico show, and on WWF, all within a 10-day span. Because I didn't understand these companies did tapings like once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months. I had no clue. I'm like, wait, what's going on? I thought he worked there. What's happening here? But I have a different take on this. I think that a lot of this is accidental and some of it's on the fly. But I still am of the opinion that we don't know what's going to happen. I don't, as Triple H said last night, it doesn't matter what you think. I think this story isn't done yet. I think part of this is the power play of the board member. The Rock is the new corporation, but he's the Uber corporation. He's the corporation above the corporation. And I'm not sure, but I've always been Rock wrestling skeptical, not just because of his age, but he wrestled 10 years ago and tore a lot of muscles. And he answers to a lot of people. He's got agents, he's got managers, he's got lawyers, he has insurance companies, he has studios, he has obligations, and you can't be rippy with that. I'm still not sure that he's actually going to wrestle at all. I'm thoroughly willing to accept that he could, get himself to be less gassed out. We saw how easily he got gassed out with the segments with LA Knight and I think Waller and Austin Theory. But I'm still thinking we're looking at a referee or a special enforcer kind of role. I really think that they have made it mandatory, and it should have been mandatory going back to tribal warfare a year ago, that other members of the Samoan dynasty, the family needs to be there. At least have, if Afansika healthy and Rikishi and his brother, have Haku there. I want representatives of all of the families there as well. I don't think it was any accident that they put everybody's name on there, including Jacob Fatu and Lance Anoa'i. I think that even if people aren't signed, that they'll be in vignettes or something, and everyone's going to get a payday. I think this is going to be cinema. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to pretend I know what's going to happen. But I do think right now, reading what I'm seeing right now, is that at some point The Rock turns on Roman and says, "You were never the head of the table. It was always my table. You were just keeping my seat warm. Rudy Poo." And we go from there.
Yeah.
last night Triple H
Yeah,
said
yeah,
that Cody made the
definitely
call.
gonna go there. They're not SummerSlam, but they're definitely gonna go there. But see, the one thing like you were alluding to, all of the people that Rock has to answer to, so his time is very, very limited. So whatever it is that he does, I'm curious to see what happens. Now, the good thing about WrestleMania now is that there's 2 nights, so they can definitely utilize that. But we'll get more into that later as to what should be. Now, leading on, now speaking about this pretty much just opened the show with Triple H addressing the situation. And personally, I thought this was brilliant because, now that The Rock has a seat at the table, um, there's a lot of people that are just throwing around that are throwing around like if like Triple H is pretty much just answering to The Rock. And I really like the way that he addressed this whole situation, or at least used it, or at least the way they used it to kind of create tension between Triple H and The Rock, which is something that there's a ton of history on. So they could definitely use it. I mean, I don't think it will end up becoming something in the ring, but they could definitely use it one way or another. I think it might end up being where Triple H is in Cody's corner and The Rock is in Roman's corner, since Roman has a history of cheating to win. It could end up being something like that. But I loved seeing Triple H's promo because it's something I haven't seen in a long time. Usually now Triple H just comes out and does like a big hype, like Tony Khan. But yeah, man, like I was definitely here for it. Definitely here for it.
Well, I think
what were your thoughts on that?
I think he said a lot when he said the only person, the sole person who gets to make the decision is the chief content officer. He said, and you're looking at him. But see, I thought he was going to go a different way. I thought he was going to say, is the winner of the Royal Rumble. That's what it is in WWE. You win the Royal Rumble, you get to call the shot. But no, he went to his power, which is what tells me that we're not done with this Game of Thrones as to the power play, because Triple H isn't even on the board of TKO. The Rock is on the board of Endeavor, which owns TKO. So I think that definitely told us that it's not really about Cody's choice anymore. He made his choice. Now it's about the power play of the dynamic. And I wouldn't be surprised if you got other people on TV, whether it's Ari Emanuel and, who actually comes on TV, or whether they just have fake board members who come on. But I think everything is in play now. And again, I think a lot of this was accidental because they were in a crisis mode because of Vince. And they're like, what we gonna do? And some of the best work happens by accident and improv. Also, some of the worst work happens that way. But I like where this is going. It's interesting. It has me interested, and that's what entertainment is. Yeah. I'm interested in seeing where the story takes me, and that at the end of the day, that's what wrestling is. The fighting is just the culmination of the story. I mean, if I just wanted to see fighting, I'd play a video game. I'd play Tekken, and then fighting without a story. But nobody watches the Avengers just to see the Hulk fight Iron Man. That's cool, but you want to see how they got there and why they got there, and then what happens afterwards. So everyone's criticizing everyone for saying cinema. Okay, whatever. I like saying cinema because it expresses a lot in one word. But it's storyline.
The Rock brings a lot of that into this now, though, because he's going to bring a lot of cinema into this. I would be surprised.
The Rock has been a shitty actor for a long time. This is his best acting since like Pain and Gain and Be Cool.
I mean, the slap was cool, man. The slap was definitely interesting. Like I said before, I did not see that coming at all. And like you said before, he might end up turning on Roman later. They might, break this down and make it an even bigger thing, make the bloodline even bigger, and make it like the NWO. But the reality is that they're all related. So who knows? Because I personally think that Roman doesn't need the title anymore. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But the next thing that came down from
Everybody
this
talks
was
about titles like once you lose it, you can't get it back again, which is just dumb. I mean, even if Roman loses the title, that doesn't mean he doesn't win it back, and it starts all over again. I mean, Ric Flair had the title 9,000 times. You know, depending on who you believe, it was 16 or 17, but you know, they were plenty. I mean, Randy Orton, they mentioned last night that he was a 13-time champion. You don't get to be a 13-time champion by you don't need the title. So you know, there you go. And all right, Charmaine thinks Cody isn't going to win. Love to see Stephanie back on TV. You know, I think a lot of people would love to see Stephanie back on TV. I'm not sure how Stephanie feels about being back on TV. I think Stephanie left because she was a little bit grossed out about some of the, maybe more than a little bit grossed out about some of the things that she read and heard. There's no way Cody can beat the Roman without the bloodline. Does that mean the bloodline would be helping Cody? I don't know. We know that Charmaine is not a Cody fan.
I think he probably. I think she needs the other way around. Yeah, but there's a lot. There's definitely a lot going on to this. So, but now after Triple H spoke yesterday, they tried to move on to Seth Rollins, and they're trying to move towards the Elimination Chamber. And you know, one thing that I certainly liked about this was when Drew McIntyre showed up and still has that CM Punk shirt and starts talking about that CM Punk shirt that is selling out more than his original merch, which is hilarious because I love it when they come across like goof merch that really sells like crazy. Shout out to R-Truth, because that's another one. That t-shirt is just hilarious. I know he's got two of them. The Tom and Nick Mysterio t-shirt. Oh my god, that shit is just too fucking funny.
Love Tom and Nick, my favorite tag team.
I just love it. Right?
So didn't Tom and Nick Mysterio attack the Blackpool Combat Club on Rampage this week?
Stumble upon.
I'm sorry, I made a silly.
They certainly did. Yeah, tune into the AEW review for that.
Yeah, not us. The last week I did the Collision show solo. Well, actually, my wife was there begrudgingly, and it's the worst viewed show on UPR. So please, folks, go over and watch the Collision show. Just put on mute if you don't want to listen. You know, go in another app or whatever, but listen, get those numbers up because I don't want to be the worst performing show of the week.
That's hilarious.
No, it's not.
That's too funny.
But I actually, you know the funny thing about this tournament that's going on is that nobody's complaining about the brand split now. All the stupid little things that people pick on about wrestling, no one's talking about that now.
You're right.
The stories are so huge. No one's like, "Where's the brand split now?" Now I've heard people, including myself, compare this to the Continental Classic, and I think that's fair. I mean, because you have some guys that don't like the Miz is not winning this, Ivar's not winning this. I mean, you know, it's like the Continental Classic in that regard. But at least it's one match and then done until it's not like everybody faces each other. I'm not forced to watch, Brody King pretend like he's an actual contender for this thing.
Exactly. Well, I mean, personally, I think that Drew came out with that because clearly, this just foreshadowing. And I got a feeling that Drew is going to have his WrestleMania moment with Seth Rollins. So. I got a feeling that's the direction that they're going to go. There really is nobody else for Seth Rollins to face. And if they put the belt on Drew, I personally think it's I don't think now. I don't know what would happen with Drew if he would continue being a heel, or if he would continue being a heel, or if he would be a face.
Whatever role he is,
or tweener. I don't know. What would happen.
As long as he continues telling truth, I don't think it matters whether he's a heel or a face, because this is a good version of Drew. I mean, he's a heel right now, but he's telling the truth. And when he's not telling the objective truth, he's at least telling a subjective version of the truth, which is understandable. It's like Thanos or Killmonger. So ever since The Sopranos, we as a culture, Western culture, maybe beyond, has been obsessed with sort of, the understandable bad guy. I mean, people are making arguments that's why we don't have morality left. Because, we were all raised on Tony Soprano, Walter White, and I think Thanos and Ultron was right and things like that. But that's definitely a different show. But I'm loving this version of Drew. He finally feels authentic. He finally feels like he's not acting a part. So I think he's just channeling things that he actually believes and being himself to an extent, and allowing to be his worst version of himself. Those evil thoughts you have at night that at 3 a.m. sound genius, but at 3 p.m. it's like, I will never do that. Well, he's doing it on screen. Like, he's playing out his nefariousness, his nefarious side on screen, and it's great. So yeah, I also think that Drew is going to win. Seth has been, he can't get out of his own clownish way. During the media event, he looked like an unnecessary extra. Nick Aldis looked more like a star than he did. Adam Pearce and Triple H looked more important. The least important person on the stage was. Were you speaking in tongues? Was that a demon?
Which was disappointing, to say the least.
Not to me. I hate Seth Rollins.
No, that was some car passing by.
I don't believe it.
But yeah, it's disappointing because the guy's over, and the guy, he definitely puts on great matches at Mania. I think, but he's got to pass the torch because he's hurt. So they got to do what they got to do. They were going to have him face Punk, but both of them are hurt. So, they'll probably pick that up at some point. But yeah, man, it's a shame because the guy's definitely over. He's down with the crowd, just like his wife. And unfortunately, he's limited to what he can do right now. But involving him in that whole situation, I don't think was necessary, personally.
Well, he sucks. I'm sorry. I don't like Seth Rollins. I think he's a clown. I think he's boring. But he's had that title a year. He's done his job. And, if a fan of his and a non-fan of his both agree that he should go away for a while and freshen up and get healthy, then that is what he should happen. And he, like I said, he held that title a full year come WrestleMania. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
Maybe so.
Now, let's shift over to the women. And let's talk a little bit about Bayley.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said before, this whole thing seems rushed, with Bayley and Damage Control. However, I kind of like the spin that they're having on this, because Bayley comes out and pretty much just continues on her new babyface role, because clearly she's a babyface now, and continues to pretty much just talk about everything that happened with Io Sky and starts promoting WrestleMania 40, basically. But then up comes out Dakota Kai. And I was very happy to see her, because this whole time I was just like, yo, where the hell were you all this time? What's going on? And Bayley addresses that. She's like, where were you? Where were you? Blah, 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 this and that. And now they're having a little tit for tat with each other. And all of a sudden, the Io Sky comes out to her NXT music and comes out with the Kabuki Warriors and this whole thing. And now all of a sudden, Dakota Kai is running out of the ring. So now there's a segment where Bailey is just sitting there by herself, and nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Dakota Kai runs in the ring with a steel chair, swinging at everybody, trying to see what the hell's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Bailey and Dakota Kai are looking at each other like, what's going on here? So I wonder if they're going to continue to try to get all the gold, if they're going to try to take all the gold away from the Kabuki Warriors, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Dakota Kai, because this entire time since they started this whole split of Damage Control, Dakota Kai was up in the air, you know. But yeah,
I don't think it was ever up in the air, and I don't think it's been rushed. I think the timing has been they actually took their time with it. I think it's pretty perfect for it to explode between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and I think it's going to continue past WrestleMania, because I think Dakota Kai is very much a spy. She's a double agent. She's always been on the side of the Kabuki Warriors and Io Sky, and she remains on it. Notice she didn't hit anybody with the chair, but she seemed just as tempted to hit Bailey as anyone else. So I think that she is going to pretend that she's on Bailey's side right through WrestleMania, since she's going to cost her that title. And then I think SummerSlam might be, might end up having to be Bailey's actual turn at Glory. But either way, I think Dakota Kai is a spy. And I'm not sure if any of this has changed because of Sasha/Mercedes. I don't know if Trinity is going to sort of replace the role of Sasha as being on Bailey's side. They certainly have enough women in NXT/WWE main roster who aren't doing anything particularly important that can, form, three allies around Bailey to help out. I mean, I don't know what's going to go on with Raquel Rodriguez. What brand she'll be on. I don't know, there's, Shotzi Blackheart can always be put into things. Michin, she's been losing a lot, but she's been showing out that she can work. Zelina Vega, I mean, I don't know the legs of this LWO, LFP thing. So we'll see, but there's always others. They've got. I mean, Xia Li's been doing nothing important. Nikki Cross disappeared.
Still a lot that they can do. But yeah, I still feel like it was like it was kind of rushed. I mean, the only other thing that I'm concerned with really is what happens to Damage Control now. I mean, is Damage Control even a thing? Do they call themselves something else? I mean, yeah, look, Dakota Kai can't be trusted because she betrayed Tegan and Raquel. So she has a history of doing this, just like Kevin Owens.
A history of violence.
Huh?
A history of violence. But either way, she's betraying someone, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that's something that people are definitely gonna talk about. I mean, personally, one thing that I like here is that from the time that Bailey brought them in, because Bailey pretty much just brought them in from NXT to now they both can be solidified singles wrestlers. Like, I mean, I know that Dakota Kai is hurt and she's not wrestling right now, but her name is big enough now where she can do her own thing.
I think she's cleared. I don't think they would have had her do all of it. I think she's just pretending that she's close to cleared. I think when she does the betrayal, it'll be clear that she's cleared. And by the way, there's a giant X factor out there, another X factor, a built-in X factor, which by the way has nothing to do with this story, by the way, what we're talking about. But it because I'm old, 55, and I forget things. We're not even talking about the Money in the Bank cash in. I mean, Senor Money in the Bank can cash in anytime he wants with whoever he wants. And that was a giant X factor in all the stories. So if anything gets boring or they make a bad decision somewhere and go in a boring way, they can insert him right back in there and spice it up again. But not in the women's story.
That certainly is true. I mean, which is now right now it's interesting because I got a feeling the cash in is going to have to be post WrestleMania. I
At this
noticed.
point, I think you're right. Yeah.
I definitely think, and I don't know if. Well, yeah, I think Dolph Ziggler was probably the last person to do that. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't think anybody else held that briefcase for that long. Because because I mean, in my opinion, the briefcase now is like another title. And I think they solidified that. Mind you, they've made it to merch. They've made specific merch for him with that briefcase. So, and they're selling a lot of them. So, like, it's a thing. It's a thing. But I'm curious. At this point, I'm very curious and ready for him to cash in. So by the time he does, I got a feeling he's going to get a huge pop. And if they do it in Puerto Rico, then yeah, he'll definitely get a huge pop. But
Well,
anyway.
I don't know when they're in Puerto Rico, though. I mean, Backlash this year's in France, I think.
I mean, but they might go back. I mean, this year of WWE should be interesting because the right now they're going to go to Australia, then they're going to go to France, and they're going to go to Germany later on in the year. So something big is going to happen with Gunther. So this year should be very, very interesting. But anyway, before we get into a tangent, let's talk about DIY.
Oh, can we do a commercial before we have to talk about this tag team match?
Man,
This
team is
nightmare.
Yeah. So the thing is, I think it's interesting how much Triple H is really trying to push DIY because during Triple H's era in NXT, they were huge. Right. So I really think that he's trying to milk this cow as much as possible. And I'm not sure how well it's working. I mean, clearly they're a good tag team. These guys have been friends for a long time, so they got a lot of chemistry. The thing is that it's been a long time since DIY was first in the scene, and I don't know if they might actually give him the belt. Now, the other thing is that Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, those are also Triple H's guys from NXT UK, and Pete Dunne was the NXT UK champion for like 2 years. Had an amazing match with Walter. There's a big part of the fan base, especially overseas, that is very high on Pete Dunne.
That's a little part of the fan base.
No, I mean overseas, not here. Not here. That's one of the things that.
About that.
Like, for example,
we fought 2 wars against them.
I'm sorry.
We fought 2 wars against them.
Who are you talking about? The Japs?
No, the British.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, definitely. But no, shit, you made me lose my train of thought. Oh, okay. But the
listen, I have a train of thought. Don't worry about my train. My train is a monorail with this tag team match. This is a nightmare of AEW proportions. It's like 4 midgets wrestling. I'd rather see those mini brawlers show. It's doing great. This is all. I mean, first of all, I did not know that Tyrion Lannister and Bronn from Game of Thrones. That's great, but I don't need to see them. The only thing I need to see less is Gargano and Ciampa as a team. Nobody gives a shit about DIY. No one will ever give a shit about DIY because one of them is 5'5" and the other one's 5'7.5". Ciampa could be something with the right thing. Gargano, forget it. He should be a manager. He's like Andre Chase. He should be a manager who takes bumps. He's funny. He's sarcastic. Not a wrestler. I don't care that he's Johnny Wrestling. Screw it. Like Robert Stone, know your role. You're not a big league wrestler. If you wanted to be a big league wrestler, go to AEW where you can pretend you're a big league wrestler. They would love you over there for 3.5 weeks to 3.5 days. All 4 of these guys.
I mean, zero. You're wrong. I think that Johnny Wrestling would definitely get a big pop in AEW for a little while.
Let him.
Then,
God bless him. Free agent, my man.
Yeah,
I want Sheamus to come back and beat the piss out of Pete Dunne and the other guy, Tyrion Lannister, Tyler Bate. I want him to bang their heads together 10 times and get rid of him. Sheamus, where are you? Sheamus, rescue me.
I mean, you know what though?
I want
The
my wrestler
exchange
6'4", not 5'4".
I am not gonna lie though. I really like the exchange between Johnny Gargano and Tyler Bate during that match. I thought
I
that it
don't want
was
you to
very
lie.
athletic.
I
I
want you to
thought it
tell
was,
the truth.
huh?
I don't want you to lie. I want you to tell the truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm not going to
So
lie. I hated it. 20 minutes of my life wasted. You know what I did? I put this match on pause, and then I came
that's
back 20 minutes later so I could fast forward through
that's too funny. That is hilarious. So I mean, but the in my opinion, I think that Triple H is really trying to push these guys, especially Butch. Not Butch, I mean Pete Dunne. But the reality of the situation is hard. Sometimes it's hard to push the short guys. It
it.
really is. Sometimes you're very successful, but sometimes it's not that easy. In my opinion, Adam Cole is a perfect example. Because the guy was huge and still is huge. But he's not that big. He's not a tall guy, and the Miz. It's a perfect example. Not a big guy, but my skills on point. And these guys, when given a chance, because
But the Miz
personally,
is
I
not
don't think
small. The Miz is like 6'2".
how
Adam
tall
Cole is
is
like 5'9" and like 140 pounds. The Miz is probably a legit 230. And I don't love the Miz. I mean, I'm just
how
saying
tall
that
is Gargano and Ciampa, man? Because they can't be. They got to be at least like 5'10", something like that. I
no,
gotta look that up.
Gargano is
How tall are these
probably
guys?
5'6". Ciampa might be 5'8".
Because they don't look that.
Neither one of them is 5'9". They're both shorter than 5'9".
Nah, man, they got to be bigger than that. They can't be that small.
They're
I
not.
got to see that. That's crazy.
I
Guys that
mean,
are
I
like
don't know.
6'5" and
I'm
up,
sure somewhere there is a
but
picture of
nah,
Johnny Gargano
man.
next to Randy Orton. Randy Orton's a legit 6'4".
5'10".
What are you looking at? You're looking at
5'10"
you're
is
looking at
Gargano.
WWE. You know that they exaggerate by at least 2 inches. They used to. Triple H used to say that he was 6'4".
No,
We see him in the ring right now. He's 3 inches shorter than Nick Aldis.
oh yeah.
And by the way, we saw Braun Breaker. Are we going to pretend that Braun Breaker is huge? He's 2 inches shorter than Triple H and look leaner than him.
Oh wait, now speaking about Braun Breaker, like, has there a decision made already? Like, I don't know what they're doing with.
No, this is all teasing. They're
treating him like he's this great free agent.
Right. That's exactly what
I don't get it. I don't see it. Like, is he really that over for them to be doing all this?
Well, they're introducing him and doing that. They want him to get over. I mean, listen, I don't want anyone to get me wrong on Braun Breaker. I love him in NXT. He's a great heel. He's a good enough face. He's got a pretty good moveset. He was a Baltimore Raven for a short time, so of course I love him. But I don't think he's a superstar. He isn't that interesting, and he's not. Everyone in NXT looks bigger than they are. Like on MLW, everyone's like, Hammerstone is a beast and Jacob Fatu is a beast. They're beasts for 5'10" or below. Braun Breaker will not look like a beast on the main roster. I think Braun Breaker can have a really good 15-year career, sort of in the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Tito Santana kind of vein, but he's not going to be your next John Cena or Randy Orton. That's going to be someone that comes out of nowhere, like a Trick Williams who came out of nowhere.
Yeah, whoop that trick. Whoop
Damn right.
that trick.
Damn right.
So now they had an elimination chamber match, elimination chamber qualifying match between Michin and Bianca Belair. So this was a baby.
The one with Drew and AJ Styles, where Drew McIntyre won because AJ and LA Knight had sort of a kerfuffle.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that match because I was just laughing at the T-shirt. But now in that situation right there, I feel like they're basically just setting up AJ Styles versus LA Knight to kind of give
Oh,
him
for
something
sure.
to do.
Absolutely.
To kind of give him something to do, which is interesting to me because I think that LA Knight's sizzle is starting to fizzle, if that makes sense. Because like he's still over. Everybody likes to say LA Knight,
Mhm.
but I don't think that he's part of. I think this is their way of trying to put some sizzle back on the steak. Because I don't see anything. There's no program for him. There's nothing going on with him right now. But he's still super over. So I definitely see probably something in the pay-per-view as far as elimination chamber with these two going on.
Very
What do you think?
possible. Yeah, it's a match that makes sense. I think you're right. It's very crowded at the top, and it's very crowded because you have a few really big things going on. I mean, he might have benefited from CM Punk's injury a little bit, but when the Rock comes in and whew, but yeah, I mean, LA Knight probably should target the U.S. champion, which is what Jeffrey said, Jeffrey Reimer, that
Yeah.
is. Uh,
Mhm.
or perhaps, there should be sort of a trade where, he goes to Raw, though I think right now they don't need it. But if Seth was still the champion, I think LA Knight against Seth would be something to be interesting. LA Knight is just like, speaking of The Miz, he sort of is a wrestler like The Miz. He's a simple
Mhm.
throwback sort of 80s wrestler, and he's
Mhm.
got the personality. I think you're right that there's a fizzle of the sizzle. I don't know that I just think though that I don't think it's that he's got smaller. I think it's that the top has gotten bigger. It's like it's like it was like a mushroom, like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, but now
Mhm.
like an actual mushroom was grown over the top of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Like the tree is sprouted. It's like the
Mhm.
tree of life. It had no branches before. Now it's got the entire Samoan family tree and the Rhodes family, and everything else filled up in there. And somewhere on the edges is Seth Rollins dancing, going, look at me. And then you got Drew. So, he was the success of timing when there wasn't a lot of good stuff going on, and now he's the victim of a lot of stuff going on. But I think that by SummerSlam he's going to have a more prominent role, and it probably will be at Logan Paul's expense. I mean, which is fine because what Logan Paul's done in the ring and as a character is nothing short of extraordinary. But as a human being, he
Mhm.
sucks. And it's just a matter of time before he
Mhm.
causes an embarrassment. And this company doesn't need a public embarrassment right now. People have almost put the Vince thing to the side or shoveled it under a rug for now. But there's litigation. And there might be other criminal charges or other charges or investigations or allegations that come public, and litigation has ebbs and flows to it, and
Mhm.
when there are flows it's going to be covered again. So you know they're going to need to spin the news cycle, because the only people who are really going to care are going to be wrestling fans. And as we've learned over the last or relearned over the last 10 days, is all you need is a little bit of wrestling red meat, and the wrestling world is tunes out. I mean, Tony Khan hurt himself this week by saying I have a major announcement and making himself the news cycle for 2 days, and more Sasha, Mercedes Moné. If he said nothing, it would just be it'd be more stories about Janelle Grant, Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, Ashley. It would have been a deluge of bad news about WWE. Instead, wrestling fans would rather talk about Tony Khan, and being the boy who cried wolf. So the big dummy, adversely impacted himself once again.
Hmm. Well, uh, I think people make the mistake of comparing Tony Khan to anyone else, um, to any other wrestling promoter, because, in my opinion, it's a guy with a lot of money playing with toys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like what he's done, what he's been able to accomplish, in my opinion, is a little extraordinary, for the simple fact that he's doing what any one of us would do, with a lot of money. Start a wrestling promotion and play with your toys, and create all these different belts and all of these different things, and literally play WWE 2K in real life. That's what this guy's doing.
I agree with what you said, except for the part that it's what any of us would do. If I actually went into business, I would at least try to make it a business. But that's the thing. This is not a business for Tony Khan, but sometimes he pretends it is. And I think that I truly believe that the TV renewal was his linchpin. That this will come out, that whatever happens in the next TV contract, that's going to be the linchpin as to whether or not he treats it as a business or not. If he gets a good contract, I think he's going to start operating like a business. If he doesn't, I'm not sure. Listen, I call him the idiot son all the time, but very few rich people are complete idiots about everything, especially money. And no rich person likes to lose money. So at some point, he'll stop pretending it's a business and either cut the cord, or he'll just, it'll be his vanity project. He'll just keep doing what he is, and that's fine. But I don't care about Tony Khan right now. I mean, because Bianca Belair faced Michin and beat her in what was a fairly competitive match, but she beat her clean. Thus, Bianca Belair advances and joins Becky Lynch in the Eliminator Chamber match. Because I could talk about Tony Khan and what I think about AEW all day long, but he's not Billy Corgan or Herb Abrams, people with a lot of money who love wrestling. He's someone who loves wrestling, who has basically an unlimited amount of money.
Basically.
I mean,
now speaking about
people in the world lost $900 million and still has $400 million left. Do you think? I'm sure that hurts him, but his lifestyle has not changed one bit.
Definitely not. Now speaking about Michin, she really showed out in this match. Now it was a baby, but she definitely really showed out. And I found it interesting how she's been losing a lot, but she's pretty much, as far as when it comes to the members of the OC, she's the one that's getting the most TV time, because the other two guys, man, like, you never see them. You never see them at all. Like, they literally showed up to the show just to be in Michin's entrance. Like, I mean, I get it, if you're looking for the steady paycheck and whatever, but I kind of feel bad for them, because they're a great tag team and they're not even being utilized as that. I don't know if anybody's heard or anything like that, but I just find it interesting.
It is a little bit interesting, but who knows? Maybe they wrestle on dark matches or the house show circuit. But yeah, it is weird a little bit. I mean, they sort of had this story with AJ, but that's sort of been forgotten. But maybe that'll play into whatever happens with LA Knight. But I don't know. I mean, listen, if you're going to have people on payroll, you should do something with them. And, I know this wouldn't be exciting, and I don't think it's going to happen. And right now it's certainly not necessary. But for a while, the bloodline was getting stale. So I was, at the time I was sort of, fantasy booking, not really a fantasy, but just sort of putting it out there that maybe Roman should hire them sort of as the APA to sort of be like the outside security, just so they had something to do. And, they could be goons for hire, so that Jimmy doesn't have to take every loss, because now Jimmy doesn't feel important. They're trying to do Jimmy versus Jay, and you can't look at Jimmy is like the pin eater. Solo, they don't want to be the pin eater, so they could have pin eaters and Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. And I just thought that would be an easy way to incorporate them into TV and still preserving sort of the mystique of the bloodline and make Jimmy versus Jay more important. Anyway, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think that if they decide that they want to, do something, give Michin a real push, and I think that she's shown that she can work. Maybe having two guys in her corners as heels, helping her, with that might work. It just doesn't make sense with AJ sort of as the heel now, and unless they're heels separate and apart from each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a heel turn I think would be nice. I've never seen Mia Yim as a heel before. So I definitely would love to see it. I personally would love to see Bianca Belair as a heel. But it's definitely too soon for that, because She's
too good.
capitalizing way baby.
She's John Cena.
Yeah, fact. Yeah.
She's going to
Yeah.
be the female face of that company for the next 12 years.
Probably. Yeah, that's true.
I would never turn her. Anyone who says she's boring, shut up. She's there for the mostly for the girls under 11 crowd, or girls under 14, and the other half, everyone that's older, half of you are going to love her anyway. She's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
She can work. She looks great. I mean,
Yeah.
would it be fun if she was a heel? Sure, but I think it would be more like in the later, whatever 40, the equivalent of 43 is to a woman. So maybe like at 37, she'd do the Hulk Hogan surprise heel turn and then have a second half of her career. But I think for the next decade or so, she's going to be the female face of WWE. She's going to be Jane Cena. Or one day, people look at me saying that the next John Cena is going to be the next Bianca Belair.
Probably. Yeah.
Or in Baltimore, you'd say she's Cal Ripken.
Huh. Oh wow. Yeah. How long did he play? He was in his 40s. Like he was like 42.
312 years.
Oh man! Imagine Cal Ripken just shows up in Baltimore all of that. Like, hey, what's up, everybody? That'd be funny. Anyway, wait, where are we at now?
We went a little bit out of order, but I think as far as the show is concerned, we talked a little bit about the Braun Breaker interplay, but we can talk about that more. And then there's the last qualifying match. I think that's really it. There's, Orton versus Sami Zayn, and sort of Sami Zayn's story.
Oh yeah, so now I'm curious to see what the hell even happens with Sami Zayn, because he was talking about how he main evented WrestleMania last year, and now the whole thing with Elimination Chamber. But clearly this Elimination Chamber is going to be about where everybody's going next. Personally, I think that Drew's going to win the Elimination Chamber and then face Seth Rollins at Mania. As far as everybody else goes, clearly they're going to start some kind of storylines there, or figure something out. The type of stuff that they try to do in the Rumble. I think that they're gonna do it in the Chamber.
I have two. Listen, I've been saying this for months, so eventually one day maybe I'll be right. But I actually still think that the Drew versus Seth match is going to turn into a triple threat. But I think it's going to be that Damian Priest is going to cash in, but before the match, and make it like Will Levice did, sort of, and be in that match, partly maybe to protect Seth because of his injury. But
if they do that, I'm totally here for it. If there's some type of triple threat match for that belt, and then Damian Priest ends up walking out of Mania with the title, I'll be happy.
But like Sammy's story seems a little bit like Meat Chin's. He's been taking a lot of L's. He lost to Randy Orton tonight, so he's not in the Elimination Chamber. Yeah. He sort of is like, last year I was on the top of the world, and this year I had a path. Well, now the path is closed, and I'm wondering if he's going to either turn heel, or I was thinking beforehand that maybe they would reunite him with Kevin Owens, and they can try to recreate that magic, and they could go for tag team gold, even though they're on different brands. Maybe they work out a trade, but I still feel like Kevin Owens and Logan Paul are going to get into it at Elimination Chamber with each other, and Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul for the title may end up being the WrestleMania match. I think it's too late to insert LA Knight into. Well, it's not too late, but it's getting there. And Kevin Owens needs something big to do also, and he's got that history. Yeah. Prize fighter versus the prize fighter. I mean, Logan Paul called himself the prize fighter, last night as well. So I don't know what's going to happen with Sammy. I mean, I'm not a big Sammy fan, but I know he's got a big fan base out there, and I still think. Okay, I think that Kevin Owens is going to be with Logan Paul. I think that somehow Sami Zayn is going to find his way to Gunther at WrestleMania. I think that's going to be Sammy's good time event. But as you point out, WWE is in Germany, several months.
For the title?
Yeah, but again, just because Gunther loses the title doesn't mean he can't win it back. I mean, I firmly believe that Gunther should hold the Intercontinental Championship for an aggregate of 7.5 of the next 10 years. That doesn't mean it should be 7.5 years in a row. Like Flair did with the NWA
I
title,
think
right?
he needs to continue going up in the ranks.
He needs to what?
I think he needs to continue going up in the ranks, because when he was Walter, he was the NXT UK champion for like 2 years. And, this is another lengthy title run. And I think that he should go after Seth's title. I definitely think that he should hold that belt for a long time and have some great matches, because they're really, really trying to push the narrative on that title. And I think that if they put it on Gunther and make it part of his whole stick, if him being the ring general and them putting all this history behind this title, I think that's definitely a good character to put it on, to give people respect to that title.
I don't see it.
Because
I don't see Gunther.
Notice how
I think Gunther is the perfect mid-card. I think Gunther is the perfect mid-card champion. I think if you put the title on him, it's going to be one of those Kevin Nash things where it's like lowest drawing champion of all time. I'm sorry. I think Gunther appeals. I think that Gunther appeals to a very significant percentage of the hardcore audience. I think Gunther is basically the equivalent of Orange Cassidy to AEW, where there are people who absolutely love him, but it's not most people. I think Gunther is perfect where he is, workhorse champion, but I think your top stars, if you want to elevate that title past Seth Rollins, it needs to be someone that's bigger than Seth Rollins in every way. And I think right now that's Drew. I think that would have been CM Punk. Even though Randy Orton, it's on a different brand. Even a Logan Paul, as absurd as that sounds, at least given what I just said about him. But I'd rather LA Knight. I'd rather they brought up Oba Femi, who's not ready to wrestle, but at least looks the part. So, and everyone knows my favorite is Lashley. I mean, at least Lashley looks like, $10 billion. Put him with a title on and nobody can question it. Gunther, he's boring. He's a good wrestler, but he's boring. And let's face it, he's got a little bit of, the fascist Nazi overtones in his character. I wouldn't put him at the top of the card. I'd leave him exactly where he is. Every now and then you want to have a title versus title, fine. But he doesn't win those. All these people who want to make Gunther the top guy, sorry, I just don't see it. I don't see the reservoir outpouring. If Gunther was at that media event, you wouldn't have had 4.7 million people view it. Sorry, it's just true.
Now, the other thing with that situation is that there has been talks about a replacement for NXT UK, known as WWE Europe. Mm-hmm. So now, apparently, if that were to happen, they would basically bring back the NXT UK championship, would pretty much become the European championship. And apparently, the goal was to make Gunther the center of that, because the fan base is very different.
I'm all for that, and if they could pull it off and bring Miro and Malachi Black back somehow. I know they're both rumored to be tied to long-term contracts, but nobody knows anything about contracts with AEW. I mean, to have those three fighting over it for 3 or 4 or 5 years, that would be awesome. But I'm all for that. I'm all for Gunther being the centerpiece of all sorts of things, except for the top title. And I wouldn't be opposed if he held the Intercontinental title and the new European title simultaneously, and then he went for the world title. And even if he won it and held it for 5 or 6 months, but the story would be he's defending 3 belts, and it's too hard on any one man to do that. I'd be okay with that. I just don't think you build the company around him during the most important, during your Royal Rumble to SummerSlam's phase. If you have him as the main piece between sort of SummerSlam until Royal Rumble, I'm okay with that. But for that half-year period, and that's that. I don't see him as your 3-year top of the card guy. But then listen, I've been wrong before in my opinion. Maybe seeing him up there would change things. I don't know. I just don't feel that way about, they haven't treated Imperium as a top tag team. Maybe if they started treating them like the Uso brothers, then maybe I'd feel differently.
I mean, I outside of the New Day, I don't see a faction that's lasted as long as Imperium, because I mean that if that faction started in NXT UK, went to NXT, is here now, and still
Yeah, I'm
rolling.
sorry. NXT
You
doesn't
know?
count. Imperium's been a faction on the main roster for less than a year, and during half that time, you had the two minions fighting each other. So
Mhm.
NXT doesn't count. It's only semi-canon, as we've learned from the Marvel TV universe versus the cinematic units. It's canon when it's supposed to be, and it's not canon when it's not. NXT, there's continuity when there is, and there's not when there isn't. The people, so, but I'm all for it. Imperium, for those of you who never saw them as a tag team in NXT, they're as good as anybody else. You know, especially when they work together frequently, they're as good as any well-oiled machine out there. I mean, they're as impressive as any other tag team you can see. I mean, their style is a bit different than FTR, but they're every bit as good. For those of you who like the grizzled young veterans or DIY, Imperium's an upgrade over both of those teams. I mean, they're a better version of both of them. When you let them work that way, and we haven't really seen it because they've been positioned as goons. Now, if you ever want Imperium to be the top faction, you'd have to level them both of them up as a team, and have them toss. They cannot split these tag team titles soon enough for me. I hope it's going to happen soon. I would crack up if Drew McIntyre got his
Me
WrestleMania
too.
moment, only to be cashed in on, and Priest sides with Truth, and that whole thing blows up. But then Drew wins the title back 2 weeks later, and then Priest gets thrown out officially. I'm going all over the place now. I'm like a shotgun right now, I'm like birdshot with pellets going everywhere. But I guess that's because we've mostly covered the show, except I guess we need to clarify. Randy Orton wins, and he goes on to the Elimination Chamber, and we did get a face-off with Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, who are, it looks like two freaking Greek gods out there. Well, I guess they're not Greek gods. I guess they're more like Norse or Celtic gods out there facing off against each other, in the ring. Like one guy's 6'5.5", and the other guy's 6'4", and both jacked to the gills. And that to me is what wrestling stars look like, not Ciampa, not Tyler Bate. Sorry, not sorry.
So wait, let's speak on Bobby Lashley. I felt like that promo was very short, and I have no idea where it is that they're going with this Final Testament faction. I don't know, man. That whole interaction between them seems stale. I hope they do something to kind of like liven it up. But personally, I still think that MVP is needed in this group. I forgot what their name was, what their official
Pride.
name was.
The Pride.
So far, but he is needed.
I
even if they
couldn't
go
agree
back
with
to
you
the
more.
Hurt Business.
This whole thing never made sense. Let me say the positive. Anyone who doesn't know, I've loved Bobby Lashley since day one. I mean, like 20 years ago, day one. I remember him when he was on the second episode of Prison Break, that old Fox show. One of the few WWE wrestling shirts I have is Almighty Bobby Lashley shirt. So Bobby's my guy. When he was the champion, I'm like, he should be the champion until he's 72 years old and he's fully vested in Social Security, and then he should just surrender. He should throw it in the middle of the ring like Samoa Joe does. Just go. I don't need this anymore. To me, he's everything the champion should be. But with the Street Profits, made no sense. It didn't make any sense for them. They're not vicious. Nobody wanted to boo any of them. I like that they found something for B-Fab to do. I like B-Fab. I think she has talent. I'm not digging the red hair. I liked it better with the white hair. That's sort of irrelevant. They're finally dressing the same. But yeah, last week, a match just ends because B-Fab jumped in the ring. Not even a disqualification, not a bell. It just ended. And that's not the first time WWE's done that, but it's weird. It's just weird. And the Last Testament makes no sense. First of all, they got Judgment Day already. Come on. It's like the same thing. And why do you need Scarlett and Paul Ellering? Now, to me, if you put AOP behind Bobby Lashley, that makes sense because you got the big two bruisers backing up the big bruiser, but they really have no personalities or no direction, so they can just be his muscle. The Street Profits, unless you're going to make them tag team champions, this is no direction. But the whole thing was that we're all going to get success together, and none of them have had success. The Street Profits lost their only title opportunity, and Lashley's lost all of his title opportunities. So the best thing that can happen to them is that they split up. But these two group, I mean, Cross to me is if you were to build a wrestler, you might build Karrion Kross, but he has not connected with the WWE audience in any incarnation, and I don't get it. He looks the part. He's got the girl. He's got the music. He's got the attitude. He can speak, but it's not working. Paul Ellering isn't helping anything. Anybody who loves Paul Ellering is my age. I'm sorry.
I think that Killer Cross, the last time he was over, was prior to his NXT debut. Like the entire teasing of him showing up, I think that's when he was most over in WWE. After he debuted, I think it all went downhill.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I think his first NXT run was pretty good, but a lot of people said that when Adam Cole owned him in a promo contest, that was sort of the end. And I can't say they're wrong because ever since then, it's been nothing good. But I don't think that lingered onto the main roster audience. I guess maybe it took away that 30% that would have cheered, and they're not, and maybe that is the difference. Maybe that head start. But it's just not working. But I mean, AOP doesn't work with him because they're both bigger than him, and he's supposed to be the leader, and they're not even beating up people and going against Lashley in the Street. I mean, neither faction can lose this war. So, I mean, they should be going like the OC should find somebody else, and they should be going after the OC and beating them up because they're nobodies. Like maybe Sami Zayn picks them up or something. I don't know, but I don't even know what to say about it because you're right. The whole thing seems directionless. And by the way, somebody pointed out that Ashante the Adonis and Cedric Alexander are now a tag team featured online. I mean, I guess it was just a matter of time before they did that, but they did announce that on X Speed, there's going to be on X, what you might call Twitter, there's going to be Speed where there's going to be 5-minute matches. And I actually think that that's a good way to sneak back the Cruiserweight title, the X division, and have something for people like Nathan Frazier, Dragon Lee, Ashante the Adonis, Cedric Alexander, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, Johnny Gargano. Something for those guys to compete for and pretend it's important and do it on X, Twitter.
It's funny because every single time.
What's that, sir?
The thing about those light titles, because look, in the Attitude Era, they had the light heavyweight title, which was, but at the time it really was just a Gilbert thing, making fun of Goldberg. But then they did the Cruiserweight Championship, which was just short-lived. It evolved from the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, which was short-lived, and then they tried to bring it back. They had the Purple Championship, and the most memorable champion of that Purple Championship was Enzo Amore, which is the guy with the least wrestling skills. So and mind you, the thing is, and look, when it comes to like 205 Live, when they really tried to center that whole thing around the cruiserweights, it was one of those things where like if you went to a SmackDown show, people would walk out, like people would start leaving. Like, and mind you, and some of these things were amazing matches, great matches and stuff like that. And a lot of people would leave. There's a few SmackDown shows here that I went to where people just wouldn't stay for it.
Well, it's because they separated it.
I'm sorry?
It's like Rampage. It's not important. 205 Live never felt important. Now, the same thing could happen with this X Speed thing, but if they mix it into the regular show and make it feel important, it's all about booking. Like if a lot of people are going for the title and you're having competitive matches and you're having vignettes backstage and attacks backstage and things like, if people are getting brutal and making it feel important, it'll feel important. The big problem with the Cruiserweight title, there were two things. One, Adrian Neville, now known as Pac, didn't want to be a cruiserweight. So he was being a bitch about it. And so when Enzo had it, he's like, I don't want to lose to Enzo. So he walked out. And, so so he ruined it. And then the second mistake they made is they changed it to purple and unified it with the North American Championship in NXT. No, they never should have done that. They could have done the cruiserweight title across the brands, but they told you it was minor league. Don't make it minor league. Make it a very important title for your like Rey Mysterios and smaller guys. And every now and then one of those guys breaks out, like the TV champion in NWA. Every now and then one of them breaks out and becomes the world heavyweight champion. Every now and then you get a surprise Daniel Bryan or Rey Mysterio Jr. I don't know who it'll be. Maybe it's Axiom. Maybe it's Ashante. I have no idea who will break out. But give the people a chance. At least some of them won't be buried now. I mean, they're not sort of in that danger, that zone where Omos is. He's too big to really be in things. Or Apollo Crews, who's 240, but nobody knows what the hell to do with him. He's not big enough to be the muscle for the Pride, but he's not small enough to be a cruiserweight.
It sucks because he's got a great look and he's great in the ring, but he doesn't have much personality. That's the sad part about him.
Yeah. And it also,
as much as he tries, not even that, he tries, but he just doesn't. He tried the Nigerian thing and all of that. It doesn't work. I don't know what it is.
Not just him. I mean, there's Dexter Lumis who's in the same category. I mean, frankly, Bo Dallas is back there somewhere doing nothing.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they should have another job squad basically, and then have like those 6 or 7 people who are doing nothing unite. Ashante, Cedric, Apollo, Bo, Dexter Lumis. I'm sure I'm forgetting about somebody. Because there's nobody released.
Nikki Cross would be perfect for that crew.
Nikki Cross, the OC. I mean, people doing absolutely nothing. For a while there was Shanky, but he's finally been released. The Sangamaniacs. Why are my beloved Sangamaniacs doing anything? Jinder. I mean, I don't like Jinder, but I like the Sangamaniacs. Jinder can go hinder somebody else. But there's like just a group of like 9 discontented people just beating the shit out of everyone just out of the numbers. I know that feels very WCW, but WCW was good for 3 years.
That's true. It was for a short period of time, but not. Certainly wasn't bad. Forever.
Raw's going to be 3 hours on Netflix. There's less commercials on Netflix. I don't think they can get away with the Peacock thing where they still put the commercial breaks in there and make people wait for 5 or 6 minutes in between watching previews or recaps of things. I think they have to do things like these speed matches and have like a cruiserweight division and have lower card matches that mean something. So I like that they are slowly building up the women's tag team division, and the men's tag team division seems to be back.
Well, what I'm curious to see what happens is what is going to be like live, right? Because if you ever go to a live show, you always notice when they have the commercial breaks, right? You'll see the wrestlers in the ring, like one will come out and then you'll see them like just hanging out for a little bit in the ring, and then all of a sudden the music comes back on and you could see on TV. You know what I mean? So like all of that is going to change, if, like you say, if they don't have the commercial breaks and all that. So as far as like them going on the road and them doing things live, it might end up being a lot faster, a hell of a lot faster than
a lot more.
So before, and we
a lot more short content, a lot more stories. But I have a secret for you. There is almost no circumstance where you can get me to see a WWE show live. I have zero interest in going into them. If you said you can have free tickets to WrestleMania, I'd say, no thanks. I'll stay home watching on TV. Not interested in the crowd. I'm not interested in dealing with any of that. If you said you can go to an AEW show free, I'd go. Because they're not boring. They don't make you wait for 5 minutes during commercial breaks and during their recaps and their recaps of their recaps and their recaps of the pay-per-view and their promos of the coming pay-per-view and their promos of the tour that's coming up in 6 months in Europe. I mean, at least with AEW, there's always things going on. I may not like most of it, but if you're at a live show, I mean, you're going to have fun anyway. Plus, with AEW, there's a pretty viable chance that you'll actually see someone die.
Well, the one thing about AEW shows that The main pro is that you're going to see some amazing wrestling. The con is that the shows are super long.
I don't
Like
care
if you
about
stay for
amazing
the whole
wrestling.
thing, if you stay there for the whole thing, the shows are super long. Like there's been times where like people had to leave early, this and that, because yeah, their
Do you
shows
want to
run
know what
long.
my favorite match of all time is? It's he who no one else will say his name, Brock Lesnar, absolutely destroying he who can't be seen, John Cena, SummerSlam 14, where he just did like 90,000 suplexes
Oh wow.
and killed John Cena. That is my favorite wrestling match of all time, bar none. No, I can't even think of what's close. The closest second might be John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in the Firehouse Funhouse match.
Oh,
Which
the cinematic match.
Yeah, which I mean really isn't a wrestling match, but I loved every second of it.
Yeah, that was great. I think that they're definitely going to do more of that in the
And
future.
final delete the
Um,
first deletion match, the first broken Matt Hardy on the complex, him against Jeff Hardy in Impact, another cinematic match that was ridiculous.
mhm.
But that was like, look, a dilapidated boat. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are others. I mean, of course, there's Bret Hart, Stone Cold, and everyone remembers Savage Steamboat, and I mean, when I say I don't care about matches, it's not true. I do. I mean, I do. I'd rather see a good match than a terrible match, but I'd rather see an average match that's 11 minutes than a fantastic match that's 45 minutes. Because I'm sorry, I'm bored. I'm not interested in a 45-minute match. I don't care what they do. I don't want to see that.
I think half an hour is a good mark. I think 30 minutes is always a good mark to a good match. Especially like a championship title match or something like that. Hey, anything below that, I think it should cap at 15 minutes.
I'm generally there, but
Personally.
there are exceptions. I thought that the MJF Brian Danielson Iron Man 1 hour match was actually brilliant, and it was so
Yeah, that's
brilliant. I knew it was brilliant because it kept me interested the entire hour, which is almost impossible, and it did.
And mind you, and speaking about Daniel Bryan, like I think that guy is amazing considering everything that he went through in the last 10 years. Because mind you, like, he was on top of WrestleMania 30 and the top of the Yes Movement, ending the show with 2 titles and all of that. And he gets hurt, and then he has to jump through all these hoops, then comes back and has to jump through more hoops and get stacked and then leaves. And now he is pretty much just elevating all these other wrestlers. I think that match between him and MJF just pushed MJF to the next level because, man, I mean, I even remember that promo that MJF did after that show. That was definitely, I agree with you 1,000%. Like that match was an amazing Iron Man match. That's definitely going to be remembered and talked about, just like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. But anyway, we could keep rambling about this stuff all day, but it looks like we're pretty much done with the show.
I'm good with that. I'm good with being done with the show. I think we covered SmackDown. I think we had plenty of tangents. We even talked about Pride and the Last Testament, which really nobody's talking about,
that's their name, the Pride. Okay. Right. Is that name gonna stick?
Oh God, no. how could it? I mean, really. I mean, just go back to the Hurt Business for God's sake, and have MVP and Almost there. What's the problem?
Yeah.
I don't know. If you want to take it seriously,
MVP
that goes
Almost would make.
Yeah. Or let them unite the Last Testament and the Pride. That'd be an interesting faction. I mean, that's like a Jeff Lippman Huff Squad.
That would definitely be.
That's like General Skandar Akbar or number 1 Paul Jones Army. I mean, that's what is Skandar Akbar called? Monster Inc. or Devastation Incorporated. That's what they called it.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Kenji Khan, the Great Kabuki, the one-man gang with the chain. Oh my God, all of that was fantastic. So good, so bad. And I'm unapologetically a giant supporter of the Dungeon of Doom.
The Dungeon of Doom. Oh
Oh
wow!
yeah, the face of
Damn, you really bringing it back to the Justice League. That's
Ming
crazy.
and
All right.
Barbarian. Well, whole thing, all of it was good. But yeah, take us home. Shut me up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for sticking with us while we talk about this week's of wrestling. It certainly was an interesting week. We're here for the next week. It should be Earthquake. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
But he was Shark there.
Wow.
He was Shark in the dungeon.
Wow. But anyway. Dang, I forgot about Earthquake. All right. Well, thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week. And it should be another interesting week of wrestling because, wow, I am so here for it. But anyway, thanks. Check us out next week. See you.
Stay